A torn dress at a glittering gala, a borrowed jacket from a mysterious billionaire. Naomi thought she was just helping a friend, but one wardrobe malfunction stitched her into a love story she never saw coming. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Naomi Wells checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the Grand Plaza Hotel and took a deep breath. The vintage blue dress she had altered herself hugged her curves in all the right places. At 39, she wasn't used to attending fancy events, like this charity gala, but her friend Melissa, who worked in PR, had called in a panic asking Naomi to fill in for her. "You look fine," she told herself, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. "Nobody will even notice you." Naomi worked as a library assistant during the day and spent her evenings hunched over her sewing machine, altering vintage dresses she found at thrift stores. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills for her small apartment. The banquet hall buzzed with conversation as men in tuxedos and women in designer gowns mingled, champagne glasses in hand. Naomi felt out of place, like a sparrow among peacocks. Still, she had promised Melissa she would hand out the press packets and make sure the reporters signed in. "Excuse me," she said, approaching a group of well-dressed women. "Are any of you from the Tribune? I have your press materials." One of the women looked Naomi up and down, her eyes lingering on the dress. "No, we're guests. The press table is over there." She pointed across the room without even trying to hide her dismissive tone. Naomi nodded and walked away, her cheeks burning. She knew her dress wasn't designer, but she had worked hard on it. The vintage 1950s gown had been a lucky find, and she'd spent weeks restoring the delicate beadwork and adjusting the fit. As she made her way across the crowded room, Naomi bent down to pick up a dropped program. The sound was unmistakable, R.I.P. The back seam of her gown had split wide open. A quiet gasp escaped her throat as she froze in place. Eyes began to turn. Whispers stirred around her. Naomi felt her heart pounding in her chest. She wanted to disappear, to run away, but she was rooted to the spot, her face flushing with embarrassment. Then, out of nowhere, a jacket, sleek, warm, and cashmere, settled over her shoulders. "Let them see your grace, not the tear." A voice, low and calm, murmured by her ear. Naomi turned to find herself face to face with a tall, elegant man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes. He was completely at ease as he gently guided her toward a quiet hallway, shielding her without making it a spectacle. "Thank you," Naomi whispered once they were away from the crowd. She pulled the jacket tighter around her shoulders, grateful. "For the rescue. No need to thank me," the man said with a warm smile. "I'm Declan Marlowe, by the way." "Naomi Wells," she replied, still mortified by what had happened. "I should probably just go home. I don't belong here anyway." "Nonsense," Declan said. "Everyone has embarrassing moments. Would you like some water?" Before she could answer, he flagged down a passing waiter and handed her a glass of water. His calm demeanor helped Naomi's racing heart slow down. "So, are you a regular at these events?" she asked, taking a sip. Declan chuckled. "You could say that. What about you? I don't recall seeing you at previous galas." "Oh, I'm just filling in for a friend who works PR. I'm actually a library assistant," Naomi admitted. "This isn't really my scene." "A library assistant? What section?" "Fiction and literature. I also run the children's reading hour on weekends." Declan's eyes lit up. "I love books. What are you reading right now?" The conversation flowed easily as they talked about books, favorite authors, and the joy of getting lost in a good story. Naomi began to relax, almost forgetting about her wardrobe malfunction. "So what do you do?" she finally asked, realizing she knew nothing about him. "I'm in real estate and investments," he said vaguely. "Nothing as interesting as surrounding yourself with books all day." Naomi smiled. "Well, thank you again for saving me from total humiliation. Moments like these can humiliate you, or humble you," Declan said thoughtfully. "It depends who's standing beside you." A woman in a glittering gold dress approached them. "Declan, darling, they're about to start the speeches. They need you backstage." "I'll be right there, Victoria," he said. Turning back to Naomi, he added, "A duty calls, will you be all right?" "Of course," Naomi said. "I think I'll slip out early. I've done my part for Melissa. Declan looked like he wanted to say more, but Victoria was already pulling him away. "It was lovely meeting you, Naomi," he called over his shoulder. Once he was gone, Naomi decided it was time to make her exit. She had fulfilled her promise to Melissa by handing out most of the press packets. No one would miss her now. At the coat check, she carefully folded Declan's jacket and wrote a quick note on the back of a business card from her purse. "Thank you for seeing me when I didn't want to be seen." She left it with the attendant, hoping Declan would get it back. The taxi ride home to her small apartment in Brooklyn was quiet. Naomi thought about Declan's kindness and wondered who he really was. She had noticed how people seemed to know him, how they deferred to him. He was clearly someone important, but he had treated her with such respect and warmth. The next morning, Naomi was back at her regular life. The Midtown Public Library was busy with the usual Saturday crowd. She shelved books, helped patrons find research materials, and ran the weekly children's reading hour. The gala and the handsome stranger felt like a distant dream. "How was the fancy party?" asked Margaret, her co-worker and friend. "Did you rub elbows with the rich and famous?" Naomi laughed. "Hardly. Although I did have a wardrobe malfunction. That nearly killed me from embarrassment. Oh no, what happened? My dress split right up the back seam. But this nice man lent me his jacket and saved me from complete humiliation." "Ooh, a knight in shining armor," Margaret teased. "Was he handsome?" "Very," Naomi admitted with a smile. But that's the end of that story. By Wednesday, Naomi had almost forgotten about the gala incident. She was helping an elderly patron find a cookbook when Margaret called her to the front desk. "There's a delivery for you," Margaret said, her eyes wide with curiosity. At the desk sat a large box with a fancy garment bag draped across it. Naomi opened the card attached. "For the woman who sews others back together. I'd love to meet again, fully dressed, of course." Declan. With trembling fingers, Naomi unzipped the garment bag to reveal a beautiful, deep emerald gown. It wasn't a designer label, but it was clearly handmade with exquisite care. The craftsmanship reminded her of her own work, but at a level she could only dream of achieving. "Who is this guy?" Margaret whispered, touching the soft fabric. "And how did he know you sew?" "I mentioned it briefly when we talked," Naomi said, still in shock. "But I have no idea how to contact him." As if answering her question, the phone at the reference desk rang. Margaret answered it, then held it out to Naomi with a grin. "It's for you, a Mr. Marlowe." Naomi's heart raced as she took the phone. "Hello?" "Naomi, it's Declan Marlowe. I hope you received my gift." "Yes, just now. It's beautiful, but I can't accept something so expensive from someone I barely know." "Then let's change that," he said, his voice warm. "Have dinner with me Friday." "Night? No gala, no crowds, just dinner and conversation." Naomi hesitated. She was curious about this mysterious man, but also cautious. "I don't know. Please, I promise, just dinner. I enjoyed our conversation the other night, and I'd like to continue it." Something in his voice, a note of sincerity, made her decision. "All right, dinner on Friday." They arranged to meet at a restaurant in Manhattan. After hanging up, Naomi stared at the gorgeous emerald gown, wondering what she was getting herself into. Friday evening arrived, and Naomi found herself at La Maison, a cozy French restaurant in Greenwich Village. She had decided against wearing the emerald gown, opting instead for a simple black dress she had made herself. She didn't want Declan to think she was expecting anything. The maitre d' led her to a quiet table in the corner, where Declan was already waiting. He stood when he saw her, his smile genuine and warm. "You look lovely," he said, pulling out her chair. "Thank you," she replied, settling in. "This place is beautiful." "I thought you might prefer somewhere quiet, where we could actually talk." The waiter brought menus and took their drink orders. Naomi couldn't help but notice how the staff treated Declan with deference. "So," she said after they had ordered, "you never really told me what you do." Declan smiled. "I'm in real estate development. My company owns a few buildings in the city." "A few buildings in New York City? That's impressive." He shrugged. "It's just business. I'm more interested in hearing about you. Tell me more about your sewing. The note with my jacket mentioned something about it." Naomi told him about growing up in foster care, how she learned to sew because clothes were the only thing she could control. When you don't have much, you learn to make do. I started by altering donated clothes to fit me better. Then I discovered I had a knack for it. And now you work at a library and sew vintage dresses at night, Declan said. You're a woman of many talents. Nothing compared to owning a few buildings in Manhattan, she teased. Money builds a lot, but it doesn't fix anything inside, he said quietly. His eyes grew distant. I grew up with wealth, but it was an emotionally cold household. My parents were always working or traveling. My sister Eliza and I basically raised ourselves. You have a sister? Had, he corrected gently. She died of leukemia when she was 22. I was 25. Naomi reached across the table and placed her hand on his. I'm so sorry. It was 20 years ago, but I still miss her every day. She was the heart of our family. The dinner continued as they shared more about their lives. Declan told her about his charity foundation, which funded medical research and programs for underprivileged children. Naomi shared stories about the children who came to her reading hours at the library and her dream of one day opening a small dress shop. By the time dessert arrived, Naomi felt as if she'd known Declan for years instead of days. There was something about him that made her feel comfortable despite their different backgrounds. Thank you for the gown, she said as they walked out of the restaurant. It's beautiful, but really too much. It reminded me of your eyes, he said simply. And I wanted to make up for your ruined evening. You already did that with your kindness, she replied. The jacket was enough. Outside, his driver was waiting with a sleek black car. Can I give you a ride home? Naomi hesitated, then nodded. As they drove through the city toward Brooklyn, Declan asked, Would you like to have dinner again? Perhaps next weekend? I'd like that, she said, surprised by how much she meant it. The car pulled up in front of her modest apartment building. Declan walked her to the door but didn't try to come in or kiss her goodnight. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. Good night, Naomi. I'll call you tomorrow. Good night, Declan. As she watched his car drive away, Naomi couldn't help but feel that her life had somehow shifted that night. Little did she know how much more it would change in the days to come. Monday morning at the library started like any other day. Naomi was checking in returned books when Margaret rushed over, a tabloid magazine in her hand. Naomi, is this you? She asked, pointing to a photo. Naomi's heart sank as she looked at the page. There was a grainy photo from the charity gala showing her with Declan's jacket around her shoulders as he guided her away from the crowd. The headline read, Mystery woman wrapped in Marlowe's jacket. Who is she? Oh my God, Naomi whispered. What is this? You don't know? Margaret looked shocked. Declan Marlowe is one of the richest men in New York. He owns the Marlowe Hotel Group and half the luxury condos in Manhattan. Not to mention the foundation that sponsored that charity gala. Naomi sat down heavily. He told me he was in real estate. He said his company owned a few buildings. A few? Try dozens. And that foundation of his? It's worth millions. Naomi, you're dating one of New York's most eligible bachelors. We're not dating, she protested weakly. We just had dinner. But even as she said it, her phone buzzed with a text from Declan. I'm sorry about the tabloid. Can we talk? Naomi stared at her phone, suddenly feeling out of her depth. The simple connection she had felt with Declan was now complicated by the reality of who he was and the public scrutiny that came with it. As she texted back a simple, yes, she wondered if the fairy tale was about to end before it had truly begun. Naomi sat on a bench in Central Park, watching people walk by. She had agreed to meet Declan here instead of somewhere more private. After seeing the tabloid photo, she felt nervous and exposed. She spotted him walking toward her, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. Without his suit, he looked more approachable, but she couldn't forget what Margaret had told her about, who he really was. Thank you for meeting me, Declan said, sitting beside her. I'm sorry about the photo. Why didn't you tell me who you really are? Naomi asked, getting straight to the point. You made it sound like you were just some regular businessman. Declan sighed. Because when people know who I am, they change. They either want something from me or they treat me differently. With you, it was nice to just be a man who helped a woman with a torn dress. But you own the hotel where the gala was held. And the foundation behind it. Yes, he admitted. Does that change how you feel about me? Naomi thought for a moment. I don't know, it's a lot to take in. I'm just a normal person with a normal life. You're Declan Marlowe. I'm still the same man who talked books with you in that hallway. The same man who had dinner with you last week. A jogger ran past, doing a double take when he saw Declan. Naomi noticed and frowned. See? This is what I mean. People are going to stare. They're going to wonder what someone like you is doing with someone like me. I don't care what people think, Declan said firmly. I like you, Naomi. I like your honesty, your passion for books, the way you talk about the kids at your reading hour. None of that has anything to do with money. But the tabloids are garbage, he finished for her. Look, I won't lie to you. Being in my life means dealing with some public attention. But I can promise you that I'll do everything I can to protect your privacy. Naomi wasn't convinced. I don't know if I belong in that world, Declan. I'm not used to having my picture in magazines or being called a mystery woman. Then let's take it slow, he suggested. No more fancy restaurants, no public places where we might be photographed. Let me show you my real life, not just the headlines. Despite her reservations, Naomi found herself nodding. There was something about Declan that made her want to trust. Him? Okay, but I need to be honest with you too, she said. I'm not looking for a rich boyfriend or a lifestyle change. I like my job at the library. I like my small apartment and my sewing machine. Declan smiled. I wouldn't want you any other way. They spent the afternoon walking through the park, talking about everything and nothing. Declan told her about how he had built his company from the ground up after his parents died, using his inheritance as seed money, but growing it through hard work and smart investments. After Eliza died, I felt lost, he admitted. Business became my whole life. It filled the empty spaces. Is that why you started the foundation? Naomi asked. Partly. Eliza always said I should use my money to help others. The foundation was my way of honoring her memory. As they walked, Naomi began to see beyond the wealthy businessman to the man beneath, a man who had experienced loss and loneliness despite his success. What about you? Declan asked. You mentioned foster care. What was that like? Naomi rarely talked about her childhood, but with Declan the words came easily. I was in the system from age 7 after my mom died. My dad wasn't in the picture. I moved around a lot, never staying in one place long enough to call it home. That must have been hard. It was. But I had my books and my sewing. They were the constants in my life. She smiled at a memory. There was this one foster mother, Mrs. Benson. She taught me how to use a sewing machine. She said, Naomi, if you can mend a tear, you can mend a life. I think of her every time I fix a ripped seam. Declan took her hand as they walked. Sounds wise. She was. She died a few years ago, but she was the closest thing to a real mother I ever had. As the sun began to set, Declan walked Naomi to the subway station. Can I see you again tomorrow? He asked. I have to work, but I'm free in the evening. How about I bring dinner to your place? Nothing fancy, I promise. Naomi hesitated. Her apartment was small and modest, nothing like what he was used to. But she nodded. I'd like that. The next evening, Declan arrived at Naomi's Brooklyn apartment carrying takeout bags from a local Italian place. He didn't comment on the size of her apartment or the second-hand furniture. Instead, he admired the vintage dresses hanging on a rack in the corner and the sewing table by the window. So this is where the magic happens, he said, looking at her sewing machine. Hardly magic, Naomi laughed. Just a lot of patience and pricked fingers. They ate pasta and garlic bread at her small kitchen table, and Naomi found herself relaxing. Declan seemed comfortable in her space, asking about her projects and listening intently, as she explained how she hunted for vintage pieces in thrift stores and estate sales. I'd love to see you work someday, he said. Maybe you could show me how you transform these old dresses into something new. It's really not that interesting to watch, she said, but she was touched by his interest. After dinner, they sat on her worn couch drinking coffee. Declan noticed a photo on the bookshelf, a young Naomi with an older woman. Is that Mrs. Benson? He asked. Naomi nodded. My 18th birthday. She made me that dress I'm wearing in the photo. It was the nicest thing I'd ever owned. Declan studied the picture. You have the same smile now." As the evening wound down, Declan helped her clear the dishes. Standing at the sink, their hands touched as she passed him a plate to dry. The simple domestic moment felt strangely intimate. When it was time for him to leave, he lingered at the door. "Thank you for tonight, for letting me into your home. Thank you for not making me feel self-conscious about it. Why would I? It's warm and real, just like you." This time, when he leaned in, Naomi met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle and brief, but it left her breathless. "Good night, Naomi," he said softly. "Good night, Declan." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a comfortable routine. Declan would visit her apartment several evenings a week, bringing dinner or groceries to cook together. On weekends, he took her to out-of-the-way places where they were less likely to be recognized. A small bookstore in Brooklyn, a hidden garden in the Bronx, a pottery studio where they laughingly failed at making decent bowls. Naomi began to see New York through new eyes. Declan knew the city's secrets, the places tourists never found, the stories behind old buildings, the best hole-in-the-wall restaurants that had been serving the same recipes for generations. One Saturday, he took her to a small fabric shop in Chinatown. The elderly owner greeted Declan like an old friend. "Mr. Marlowe, you bring a lady friend today, very pretty. Mrs. Zhang, this is Naomi. She's a seamstress. I thought she might appreciate your silks." Mrs. Zhang's face lit up. "Ah, a lady who sews, come, I show you special fabrics." Naomi was overwhelmed by the beautiful textiles Mrs. Zhang showed her. Hand-embroidered silks, delicate laces, rich brocades. When she admired a bolt of emerald green silk, Declan quietly purchased several yards despite her protests. "Consider it materials for your next project," he said. "I'd be honored if you used it." Later, over dim sum at a tiny restaurant around the corner, Naomi asked, "How do you know Mrs. Zhang?" "Her son was one of my first employees. When he wanted to start his own business, I helped with a loan. Mrs. Zhang insisted on sewing all the curtains for my first office building as thanks." Declan smiled at the memory. "She still mends my shirts sometimes, though I think you might have competition there now." Naomi laughed. "I did notice that button on your cuff is loose. I could fix it for you." Back at her apartment, Declan watched as Naomi expertly repaired his shirt cuff. Her fingers moved quickly, the needle flashing in the afternoon light. "My grandmother used to sew like that," he said. "I barely remember her, but I remember watching. Her hands work. She died when I was very young." "What was her name?" Naomi asked. "Eleanor." "Eleanor Grace Marlowe. That's a beautiful name. She came from nothing, married my grandfather when he was just starting out. They built everything together." His voice grew soft. "My father never talked about her much after she died. I think it hurt him too much." Naomi tied off the thread and clipped it. "They're good as new." Declan examined her work. "Perfect, thank you." As their relationship deepened, Naomi began to feel more secure with Declan. He never pushed her to attend high-profile events or introduced her to his wealthy friends. Instead, he seemed content to live in her world, helping at the library's book sale, fixing the wobbly leg on her sewing table, bringing her soup when she caught a cold. But the outside world wouldn't stay away forever. One evening, Naomi was waiting for Declan at a small cafe when she overheard two women at the next table. "Did you see the article in City Style about Declan Marlowe?" one asked. "Apparently he's dating some librarian from Brooklyn." "I give it 3 months," her friend replied. "Men like that don't settle down with nobodies. Remember when he dated that model last year? Everyone thought they'd get married, but it didn't last." "Victoria Winters," the first woman nodded. "She's still bitter about it. My cousin works at her agency and says Victoria thought Declan was going to propose." Naomi's heart sank. Victoria, the woman in the gold dress at the gala, the one who had pulled Declan away. She hadn't connected the dots until now. When Declan arrived, he immediately sensed something was wrong. "What is it?" he asked as they walked to the restaurant. "Did you date Victoria Winters?" Naomi asked directly. Declan looked surprised, then nodded. "Yes, for about 6 months last year. How did you hear about that?" "People were talking about it at the cafe. They were also talking about us." Declan sighed. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I wanted to protect you from. Were you serious about her? The women said everyone thought you were going to propose. Everyone except me, Declan said firmly. Victoria and I were never right for each other. She wanted the lifestyle, the status of being with me. When I realized that, I ended it. And us, what do you want from me? Declan stopped walking and turned to face her. I want you, Naomi, just you. Not the woman I can show off at galas or the perfect society wife. I want the woman who reads to children on weekends and gets excited about finding a vintage dress at a thrift store. The woman who fixed my cuff button and didn't expect anything in return. His words soothed her fears, but the conversation at the cafe had planted a seed of doubt. What if the women were right? What if someone like Declan couldn't be happy with someone like her in the long run? That night, Declan sensed her withdrawal. As they said goodnight at her door, he held her hands in his. Don't let them get in your head, Naomi. What we have is real. She wanted to believe him, but the fear lingered. The next day at the library, Naomi was shelving books when she noticed a tall, elegantly dressed woman watching her from the end of the aisle. As she got closer, she recognized Victoria Winters. So, you're the famous Naomi, Victoria said, her voice cool. I was curious about the woman who replaced me. Naomi's stomach tightened. I don't think we should be having this conversation here. Why not? Afraid someone will notice you're out of your depth. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand trailed along the book spines. Do you really think you know what you're getting into? With Declan. His world isn't like this, she gestured around the library. It's ruthless. People will eat you alive. I'm not trying to be part of his world, Naomi replied, trying to keep her voice steady. I care about Declan, not his money or status. Victoria laughed, a brittle sound. How noble. But it won't last. Declan might be playing at being ordinary with you now, but eventually he'll want someone who fits into his real life. Someone who won't embarrass him at business dinners or foundation events. If that's what he wanted, he'd still be with you, Naomi said, surprising herself with her boldness. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You think you're different? Special? I've seen your picture in the tabloids, mystery woman in borrowed dress. How pathetic, she leaned closer. Don't get too comfortable, library girl. Men like Declan always come back to women like me in the end. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Naomi shaken. That evening, Naomi called Declan and cancelled their plans, claiming she wasn't feeling well. The truth was, she needed time to think. Victoria's words had hit a nerve, awakening all the insecurities Naomi had been trying to ignore. She spent the evening at her sewing machine, working on a project using the emerald silk Declan had bought her. The familiar rhythm of stitching helped calm her mind, but her thoughts kept returning to Victoria's visit and the whispers at the cafe. What if they were right? What if she was just a novelty to Declan, a temporary escape from his real life? The say. Next morning, a delivery arrived at the library, a beautiful arrangement of wildflowers with a note, missing you. Feel better soon. D. The simple thoughtfulness of the gesture brought tears to her eyes. This was the man she knew, considerate, genuine, caring. Margaret noticed her emotional reaction. Everything okay with you and Mr. Millionaire? I don't. No, Naomi admitted. Yesterday his ex-girlfriend showed up here to warn me that I don't belong in his world. What a witch, Margaret exclaimed. Don't listen to her. She's obviously jealous. But what if she's right? We come from completely different worlds. Maybe this is all just temporary. Margaret gave her a stern look. Now you listen to me, Naomi Wells. I've known you for 5 years, and I've never seen you as happy as you've been these past few weeks. Are you really going to let some bitter ex ruin that? Naomi sighed. It's not just her, it's everything. The tabloids, the whispers, the feeling that I'm always going to be an outsider in his life. Have you talked to Declan about this? Not really. I don't want him to think I'm insecure or needy. Honey, relationships are built on communication. If you're feeling this way, he deserves to know. Naomi knew Margaret was right, but the thought of voicing her fears to Declan terrified her. What if bringing it up only convinced him that Victoria was right, that they were too different, that it would never work? That evening she called him. Can you come over? We need to talk. The worry in his voice was evident. Of course. I'll be there in half an hour. When Declan arrived, Naomi was sitting on her couch. The emerald silk dress she'd been working on spread across her lap. He sat beside her, his face concerned. "What's going on, Naomi? Are you really sick? You don't look ill." Victoria came to. "See me at the library yesterday," she said, watching his expression change from concern to surprise to anger. "What? Why would she do that?" "To warn me that I don't belong in your world, that eventually you'll want someone who fits into your real life." Naomi looked down at the silk in her hands. "And the thing is, part of me wonders if she's right." Declan's jaw tightened. "I can't believe she would do that. I'm so sorry, Naomi. What she did was completely inappropriate and cruel." "But was she wrong?" Naomi pressed. "We come from such different places, Declan. You're used to galas and business, meetings and people recognizing you everywhere you go. I'm just a library assistant who sews dresses at night." "And that's exactly why I fell for you," Declan said, taking her hands in his. "Because you're real, because you see me, not my bank account or my business empire." He pulled her closer. "Listen to me. Victoria is bitter and jealous. Yes, we come from different backgrounds, but that doesn't mean we can't build something real together. I've never felt with anyone what I feel when I'm with you." Naomi wanted to believe him, but her doubts lingered. "What about your friends, your colleagues? Won't they expect you to be with someone more suitable?" "Anyone who matters will see what I see in you," he said firmly, "and anyone who doesn't see it doesn't matter to me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I was going to wait, but maybe now is the right time." Naomi's heart raced as he opened the box to reveal a delicate silver bracelet with a small charm, a sewing needle and thread. "This isn't an engagement ring," he said with a smile. "It's too soon for that. But it is a promise that I'm in this for the long haul, if you'll have me." Tears filled Naomi's eyes as he fastened the bracelet around her wrist. The gesture was so thoughtful, so perfectly suited to her. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "There's an inscription," he said, turning the small charm over. Engraved on the back were the words, "Mending tears, one stitch at a time." In that moment, looking into Declan's eyes, Naomi felt her doubts begin to fade. He wasn't asking her to change or to fit into his world. He was promising to build a new world with her, stitch by stitch. But as she leaned in to kiss him, she couldn't help wondering if love alone would be enough to overcome the differences in their lives, or if Victoria's prediction would eventually come true. 3 months into their relationship, Naomi and Declan had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Naomi wore her bracelet every day, touching it whenever doubts crept in. After Victoria's visit to the library, Declan had made it clear to his ex that her behavior was unacceptable, and she hadn't bothered Naomi since. Still, Naomi couldn't escape. The feeling that she was living in 2 separate worlds. There was her normal life at the library and in her small apartment, and then there was the glimpse of Declan's world that she occasionally caught, the business calls he took while at her place, the expensive gifts he sometimes brought despite, her protests, the way people treated him differently when they were out together. On a rainy Saturday morning, Naomi was at the library for her weekly children's reading hour. She sat on a colorful rug surrounded by a dozen kids, reading The Velveteen Rabbit with animated expressions. She didn't notice Declan slip into the back of the room until she looked up during a page turn and saw him watching her, a warm smile on his face. When the story ended and the children dispersed to find books with their parents, Declan approached. "That was wonderful," he said. "You had them completely mesmerized." Naomi blushed. "It's my favorite part of the job. What are you doing here? I thought you had meetings all day." "They finished early. I thought I'd surprise you." He helped her put away the cushions and story props. "You're really good with kids, you know." "I love seeing their faces when they get lost in a story," she said. "It reminds me of how I felt. As a child, books were my escape." They walked to the staff room together. Margaret gave Declan a friendly wave as they passed her at the reference desk. "I was thinking," Declan said as Naomi collected her things, "maybe it's time you saw more of my world." Naomi tensed. "What do you mean?" "The foundation is hosting a fundraiser next weekend. Smaller than the gala, just dinner and a silent auction. I'd like you to come as my date." "Officially," Naomi hesitated. I don't know, Declan. The last time I went to one of your events, I ended up with a torn dress and my picture in the tabloids. I understand your concerns, he said gently, but I don't want to keep you hidden away like some secret. You're an important part of my life, and I want people to know that. Seeing her uncertainty, he added, we can pick out a dress together, something you're comfortable in, and I promise to stay by your side the whole time. Naomi thought about it. She had been avoiding this aspect of Declan's life, but she knew she couldn't do so forever if their relationship was going to work. Okay, she said finally. But no more talk of me being hidden away. I've enjoyed our private time together. Me too, he said, kissing her forehead. And we'll still have plenty of that. But I want to share all parts of my life with you, not just the quiet evenings at your apartment. The week leading up to the fundraiser was busy. Declan had insisted on buying Naomi a new dress, but she had firmly declined. I want to wear something I made, she told him. If I'm going to step into your world, I want to do it as myself. She worked on the emerald silk dress every evening after work, using a vintage pattern she had modified. The design was elegant but simple, a fitted bodice with a bateau neckline and a flowing skirt that fell just below the knee. No beads or sequins this time, nothing that could tear or fall off. The night of the fundraiser, Declan picked her up, in his car. When she opened the door wearing the emerald silk dress, his expression made all her hard work worthwhile. You look absolutely beautiful, he said, his voice full of admiration. Did you really make that yourself? Naomi smoothed the silk nervously. Yes, do you like it? Like it? I love it. You're incredibly talented. He handed her a small box. I brought you something to go with it. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small emerald pendant. I remembered you saying you never had real jewelry growing up, he said, as he fastened it around her neck. It's perfect, she whispered, touching the stone. Thank you. The fundraiser was held at a boutique hotel in Manhattan owned by the Marlowe Group. As they walked in, Naomi gripped Declan's arm tightly. Relax, he murmured. You look gorgeous and you're with me. That's all that matters. The ballroom was tastefully decorated, with about 100 guests mingling before dinner. Naomi noticed it was a much smaller gathering than the gala where they'd first met. Declan? A distinguished older man approached them. Glad you could make it. Robert, wonderful to see you, Declan shook his hand. I'd like you to meet Naomi Wells. Naomi, this is Robert Chen, head of our foundation's education committee. Her pleasure to meet you, Ms. Wells, Robert said warmly. Declan has mentioned you several times, though he's been quite secretive about the details. The pleasure is mine, Naomi replied, surprised that Declan had talked about her with his colleagues, hasn't we? The evening progressed. Declan introduced Naomi to more people, board members of his foundation, business associates, old friends. To her surprise, most were genuinely friendly, asking about her work at the library and seeming sincerely interested in her answers. During dinner, Naomi was seated next to a woman named Clara, who served on the foundation's board. So, you're a librarian, Clara said as they ate. That must be rewarding work. It is, Naomi replied, especially the children's programs. There's nothing like seeing a child discover the joy of reading. I couldn't agree more, Clara said enthusiastically. Before I retired, I was an elementary school teacher. Literacy has always been my passion. They fell into an easy conversation about favorite children's books and the importance of early reading programs. Naomi found herself relaxing, realizing that not everyone in Declan's world was as judgmental as she had feared. After dinner, as the silent auction began, Declan took her arm. Come with me, there's something I want to show you. He led her through a side door and up a flight of stairs to a small conference room. Inside, the walls were covered with children's artwork. Colorful drawings and paintings with messages of thanks. What is this? Naomi asked, moving closer to examine the pictures. These are from the children's literacy programs, our foundation funds, Declan explained. After-school reading clubs, summer library programs, book donations to underserved schools. Naomi studied the drawings, touched by the childish handwriting and bright colors. One picture showed a smiling girl surrounded by books with the words, "Thank you for my reading club," written in wobbly letters. "This is amazing," she said. I had no idea your foundation did so much for literacy. It's one of our core missions, Declan said. My sister Eliza was dyslexic. Reading was a struggle for her, but she loved stories. Our parents hired the best tutors, and eventually she overcame her difficulties, but she never forgot how it felt to be left behind. He touched one of the drawings gently. Before she died, she made me promise to help other children who didn't have the advantages we had growing up. This program was the first one I started after her death. Naomi saw the emotion in his eyes and took his hand. In that moment, she felt a deeper connection to him than ever before. This wasn't just about his wealth or success. This was about his heart, his values, the things that truly mattered to him. Thank you for showing me this, she said softly. I wanted you to see that my world, as you call it, isn't just about fancy parties and business deals. This is the part that matters most to me. Naomi nodded, understanding what he was trying to tell her. I think I needed to see this. When they returned to the ballroom, Naomi saw the event with new eyes. These weren't just wealthy people enjoying an elegant evening. They were supporters of causes that made real differences in children's lives. As they moved through the room, Declan kept his promise to stay by her side. He proudly introduced her to everyone, his hand warm at the small of her back. Naomi began to feel less like an outsider and more like she belonged, not because of her dress or jewelry, but because she shared Declan's passion for helping children through reading. Later that night, as they drove back to her apartment, Declan asked, "So what did you think? Was it as terrible as you feared?" "Not at all," Naomi admitted. "Everyone was so nice, especially Clara. We exchanged emails so I can send her some children's book recommendations." "See? Not all rich people are awful," he teased. "I never said they were awful," she protested. "Just intimidating." "And now?" "Now? I understand better why you care about the foundation so much. It's not just a tax write-off or a way to look good. It's personal for you," Declan nodded. "I wish Eliza could see what we've accomplished. She would have loved meeting you, you know. You both have the same kind heart." At her door, Declan kissed her goodnight. "Thank you for coming tonight. It meant a lot to have you there." "Thank you for showing me that part of your life," she replied. "It helped me understand you better." The next morning, Naomi woke to a text from Declan. "Check the Sunday style." Section. With a sense of dread, she opened the digital edition of the newspaper on her tablet. There it was, a photo of her and Declan at the fundraiser. But unlike the tabloid picture from months ago, this was a proper society page feature. The caption read, "Declan Marlowe, CEO of Marlowe Group, with Naomi Wells at the annual Children's Literacy Foundation fundraiser. Ms. Wells, a children's librarian, wore a stunning emerald silk dress she designed and crafted herself." Naomi stared at the photo in disbelief. She looked elegant and composed, nothing like the embarrassed woman with a torn dress from the tabloid, and the caption mentioned her profession respectfully and even highlighted her dress. Her phone rang. It was Declan. "Did you see it?" he asked. "Yes," she said, still staring at the image. "Did you have something to do with how they described me?" "I might have mentioned to the photographer that you made your dress," he admitted. "But the rest is all you, Naomi. You impressed people last night just by being yourself." Over the next few weeks, Naomi found herself more integrated into Declan's life. She attended another foundation event, met some of his friends for dinner, and even spent a weekend at his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. His home was exactly what she had expected, spacious, tastefully decorated with expensive art and offering breathtaking views. But what surprised her was how comfortable it felt. Despite its grandeur, there were personal touches everywhere: photographs of his sister, books piled on side tables, a well-used leather chair, clearly his favorite spot. On Sunday morning, Naomi woke early and wandered into Declan's study while he was still asleep. The room was lined with bookshelves, and she ran her fingers along the spines, smiling at his eclectic collection: classic novels, business books, biographies, and even a shelf of children's literature. On his desk sat a framed photo of a young woman with Declan's eyes and smile. Eliza, she realized. Next to it was a newer frame, and Naomi's heart skipped when she saw it held a photo of her. laughing at something off camera, her face lit with joy. She didn't even remember when it had been taken. "Morning," Declan's voice came from the doorway. "I see you found my sanctuary." "It's lovely," she said, turning to face him. Your book collection is impressive." He came to stand beside her, following her gaze to the framed photos. "Two of my favorite people," he said simply. "When did you take this picture of me?" she asked, touching the frame. "About a month ago, when we were having pizza in your apartment. You were laughing at that silly movie we were watching." He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You looked so beautiful and carefree, I couldn't resist." Naomi leaned back against him, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't expected. Here, in the heart of Declan's world, his private space filled with the things he loved, she felt not like an outsider, but like she belonged. "I was thinking," Declan said, his chin resting on her shoulder, "maybe you could leave some of your things here, a change of clothes, some books, for when you stay over." It was a small step, but an important one. "I'd like that," she said softly. Later that day, as they walked through Central Park, Naomi couldn't help comparing their relationship now to those uncertain first weeks. She still had moments of doubt, still worried sometimes about the differences in their backgrounds, but those fears no longer consumed her. "Penny for your thoughts," Declan said, squeezing her hand. "I was just thinking about how far we've come since that night at the gala. If someone had told me then that in a few months I'd be leaving clothes at your penthouse, I would have laughed in their face." Declan smiled. "And if someone had told me I'd fall in love with the woman whose dress ripped that night, I probably would have believed them." Naomi stopped walking. "What did you say?" Declan turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I said I've fallen in love with you, Naomi Wells. Library assistant, dressmaker, children's reading hour expert, and the most genuine person I've ever known." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you too," she whispered, "but I'm still scared sometimes." "Of what?" "That someday you'll wake up and realize that I don't fit into your life. That you need someone more like Victoria, someone who knows how to navigate your world." Declan shook his head. "Haven't you been paying attention? You navigate my world beautifully just by being yourself. Clara from the foundation calls me every week to ask when you're coming to the next board meeting. Robert Chen's wife wants your help picking books for their grandchildren." He cupped her face in his hands. "You don't need to change who you are to fit into my life, Naomi. You've already changed my life just by being in it." As they continued their walk, Naomi felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. The fear wasn't completely gone. She doubted it ever would be. But Declan's words had eased it considerably. The following week brought an unexpected development. Naomi arrived at work to find Margaret waiting for her with an excited expression. "You're not going to believe this," Margaret said, pulling her into the break room. "I just got a call from the director of the Brooklyn Public Library Foundation. They want to meet with you about an idea for a special program." "Me? What kind of program?" "Something about teaching sewing skills to teens while incorporating literature. The woman mentioned your name specifically and said Declan Marlowe had recommended you." Naomi was stunned. "Declan did this? He never said anything to me." "Apparently he's offered to fund the program through his foundation if the library approves it." Naomi didn't know whether to be touched or annoyed that Declan had gone behind her back. That evening when he came over for dinner, she confronted him. "Why didn't you tell me about the sewing program?" she asked as soon as he walked in. Declan looked surprised, then sheepish. "I wanted it to be a surprise." "How did you find out?" "Margaret told me. The foundation called the library today." She crossed her arms. "Declan, you can't just create a job for me without talking to me first. It's not a job," he explained quickly. "It's an opportunity. The director mentioned they were looking for new ways to engage teenagers in library programs. I simply suggested that combining literature with practical skills like sewing might appeal to them, and that I knew someone perfect to run such a program." "And the funding? Was that your idea too?" "Yes," he admitted. "But I didn't do it for you, Naomi. I did it for the kids who will benefit from it. The fact that it also happens to be something you'd be amazing at is just a bonus." Naomi sighed, her annoyance fading. "You should have talked to me first." "You're right, and I'm sorry. I got excited about the idea and wanted to surprise you." He took her hands. "If you're not interested, You can say no. There's no pressure. She thought about it. Teaching sewing while incorporating literature did sound like a perfect combination of her skills and passions. I'll meet with them, she decided. But no promises. And in the future, please talk to me before you make plans that involve me. I promise, he said, looking relieved. So, am I forgiven? Naomi pretended to consider. That depends on what you brought for dinner. The meeting with the library. Foundation went better than Naomi had expected. The director, a woman named Helen Barnes, was genuinely enthusiastic about the program idea. We've been trying to reach more teens, especially in underserved communities, Helen explained. Your background in both library science and sewing makes you uniquely qualified to lead this initiative. As they discussed the details, Naomi found herself growing excited. The program would meet twice weekly after school and would combine reading relevant literature with learning practical sewing skills. The teens would read books about fashion, design, and self-expression, then create projects inspired by their reading. We'd like to offer it as a pilot program for 6 months, Helen said. If it's successful, we could expand to other branches. And my regular job at Midtown? Naomi asked. You'd reduce to part-time there, splitting your week between locations. We can be flexible with the schedule. It sounded perfect, a chance to combine her two passions while still keeping her familiar routine at Midtown. I'm interested, Naomi said. When would you want to start? We'd like to launch after the holiday break in January. That gives us about 2 months to plan and gather supplies. As Naomi left the meeting, she felt a surge of excitement. This opportunity aligned perfectly with her skills and interests. And while Declan had initiated it, the foundation had embraced it because they saw its value, not just because of his influence. That evening, she called Declan with the news. I'm going to do it, she said. The program starts in January. That's wonderful, he exclaimed. I knew they'd love you. Thank you for thinking of me, she said, even if your approach was a bit high-handed. Lesson learned, he promised. From now on, I discuss opportunities with you before making any arrangements. Good, because partners discuss things together. There was a pause on the line. Partners, Declan repeated, a smile in his voice. I like the sound of that. As Naomi prepared for her new role, December arrived, bringing holiday decorations to the city and a flurry of charity events to Declan's calendar. Now more comfortable in his world, Naomi accompanied him to several, including the annual Christmas Gala for the Marlowe Foundation. Unlike her first gala experience, this time Naomi felt prepared. She created a deep red velvet dress for the occasion, elegant and festive. When she descended the stairs at the Marlowe Hotel ballroom with Declan at her side, heads turned, not because of a wardrobe malfunction, but because they made a striking couple. Victoria Winters was there, draped in designer gold once again. She gave Naomi a cold look across the room but kept her distance. Don't worry about her, Declan murmured. She's only here because her father is on the board. I'm not worried, Naomi replied, and realized she meant it. She no longer feared Victoria's presence or what she represented. Naomi knew her place in Declan's life was secure. As midnight approached, Declan led her to a quiet balcony overlooking the city's twinkling lights. I have something for you, he said, producing a small box. Naomi's heart raced. Declan, it's not what you think, he said with a smile. Not yet, anyway. Inside the box was a key. This is to my apartment, he explained. I want you to think of it as your place, too. No pressure to move in completely. I know you love your Brooklyn apartment and your independence. But I want you to know my home is your home, whenever you want it to be. Naomi took the key, touched by the gesture and the thoughtfulness behind it. He wasn't asking her to give up her space or change her life dramatically. He was simply opening his world to her a little more. Thank you, she said, kissing him. It means a lot. As they stood on the balcony, snow began to fall softly around them, dusting Naomi's hair with delicate flakes. Declan brushed them away gently. Do you remember what I said to you the night we met? He asked. Naomi smiled. Let them see your grace, not the tear. I knew then that you were special, he said. The way you held yourself with dignity despite your embarrassment. The way you talked about books with such passion." He pulled her close. "I never thought a torn dress would lead me to the love of my life, but I'm grateful every day that it did." As they kissed under the falling snow, Naomi felt the last of her doubts melt away. Their worlds might have been different once, but they had created a new one together. A world where a library assistant and a billionaire could find common ground in the things that truly mattered: compassion, passion, and love. But even as she basked in the moment, Naomi couldn't see the figure watching them from inside the ballroom. Victoria, her face twisted with anger and jealousy, her mind already plotting how to reclaim what she believed should be hers. January brought cold winds to New York City and new beginnings for Naomi. The teen sewing program launched with 12 eager participants, mostly girls from underserved neighborhoods. The Brooklyn Public Library had transformed a meeting room into a workspace with 6 sewing machines donated by a local fabric store. Today we're going to discuss how clothing reflects identity in the sisterhood of the traveling pants, Naomi explained to the group. Then we'll start designing tote bags inspired by what makes each of you unique. Watching the teenagers sketch their designs, Naomi felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. These girls reminded her of herself at that age, looking for ways to express themselves with limited resources. "Miss Wells, can you help me?" asked Jasmine, a quiet 14-year-old with a talent for detail work. "I can't get this pattern right." As Naomi guided Jasmine's hands on the fabric, she felt someone watching from the doorway. Looking up, she was surprised to see Declan leaning against the doorframe, a proud smile on his face. "Don't mind me," he said to the group when they noticed him. "I just wanted to see the program in action," the girls whispered excitedly, recognizing him from the foundation banner on the wall. Naomi introduced him simply as Mr. Marlowe from our sponsoring foundation, not mentioning their relationship. For the rest of the session, Declan sat quietly in the corner, occasionally answering questions from the bolder girls, but mostly observing. When the teens left, he helped Naomi clean up the scraps of fabric. "They adore you," he said, "especially that one with the braids. Jasmine?" "She's incredibly talented," Naomi replied. "All she needs is someone to believe in her." Declan rapped, his arms around her waist. "Like someone believed in you?" Mrs. Benson, she nodded. "Without her, I might never have discovered my love for sewing. I was thinking more recently," he said. "Someone who saw past a torn dress to the amazing woman underneath." Naomi laughed. "That guy? He was just showing off, trying to impress a damsel in distress." "Is it working?" he asked, kissing her lightly. "Maybe a little." As winter melted into spring, Naomi found herself dividing her time between her apartment and Declan's penthouse. She had brought over enough clothes and personal items that one of his guest rooms had been converted into a sewing space for her, with a professional machine and perfect lighting. The teen program had expanded to 2 groups due to its popularity, and Naomi had reduced her hours at the Midtown Library to focus on it. She loved the work, watching the girls gain confidence as they mastered new skills, seeing their faces light up when they completed a project. One evening in April, Naomi returned to Declan's penthouse after a long day to find the dining room transformed. Candles flickered on the table, and the scent of her favorite pasta dish filled the air. "What's all this?" she asked as Declan greeted her with a kiss. "Just felt like celebrating," he said, taking her bag and guiding her to a chair. "The foundation board approved the expansion of your program to 3 more libraries. That's wonderful news," Naomi exclaimed. "Was it unanimous?" "Almost," Declan replied, pouring her a glass of wine. "Victoria's father voted against it predictably." Naomi's smile faltered slightly at the mention of Victoria. Though the woman had kept her distance in recent months, Naomi occasionally caught glimpses of her at events, always watching them with barely concealed animosity. "Don't let her spoil the moment," Declan said, noticing her expression. "This is about you and the amazing work you're doing." Over dinner, they discussed plans for the program expansion. Naomi would need to train new instructors and develop a proper curriculum that could be replicated across locations. "I've been thinking," Declan said as they finished dessert, "this could be bigger than just Brooklyn. The foundation supports literacy programs across the country. What if we made your program a national initiative?" Naomi stared at him. "That's a huge undertaking." "It would mean more responsibility," he acknowledged, Possibly some travel to set up new locations, but you'd have a staff to help, and you'd be making a real difference for thousands of kids. I'm not sure I'm qualified to run something that big, Naomi said hesitantly. You're more qualified than you give yourself credit for, Declan insisted. You understand both the practical skills and the connection to literature. Plus the teens respond to you because you're authentic. You learn to sew out of necessity, just like many of them. Naomi sipped her wine, considering the possibility. I'd need to think about it. It's a big change. Of course, no pressure. Declan reached across the table to take her hand. Whatever you decide, I'm behind you 100%. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Naomi's mind was still racing with possibilities. A national program would be challenging but rewarding. It would also mean a significant career shift, from library assistant to program director. What are you thinking about? Declan asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. How much my life has changed since meeting you, she replied honestly. A year ago, I never would have imagined running even a small program, let alone considering a national one. Is that good or bad? Good, she said without hesitation. Scary, but good. You've helped me see possibilities I never would have considered before. Declan propped himself up on one elbow. You did the same for me, you know. Before you, my life was all business deals and foundation events. You reminded me how to enjoy simple things. Reading a good book, cooking dinner together, spending a quiet Sunday in the park. Naomi smiled, reaching up to touch his face. We've been good for each other. The best, he agreed, kissing her palm. The next morning, Naomi woke to an empty bed and the smell of coffee. She found Declan in the kitchen, already dressed for work, hand reading something on his tablet. You're up early, she commented, pouring herself a cup. Early meeting, he explained, but I wanted to show you something before I left. He slid the tablet toward her. On the screen was a real estate listing for a beautiful brownstone in Park Slope, Brooklyn. The historic building had been recently renovated, with large windows and a garden in the back. What do you think? Declan asked, watching her expression carefully. It's gorgeous, Naomi said, scrolling through the photos. Are you thinking of buying it as an investment property? I'm thinking of buying it as our home, he said quietly. Naomi looked up, surprised. Our home? I know you're torn between your Brooklyn life and staying here with me, Declan explained. This could be a compromise, a place that's truly ours, not just mine that you visit or yours that I visit. Somewhere we could build a life together. Declan, are you asking me to move in with you officially? I'm asking for more than that, he said, his voice suddenly nervous. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait until tonight, plan something romantic, but I can't wait anymore. Naomi's heart pounded as he opened the box to reveal a stunning but understated emerald ring, surrounded by small diamonds. Naomi Wells, you've shown me what really matters in life. Not success or money, but connection, compassion, and love. Will you marry me? Tears filled Naomi's eyes. Despite the growing seriousness of their relationship, she hadn't expected this. Not yet. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Declan whispered, taking her hand. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Naomi felt a mixture of joy and trepidation. Marriage to Declan would mean permanently joining his world, with all its privileges and complications. The brownstone is just an idea, Declan said, seeming to read her thoughts. We can live wherever you want. Your apartment here, somewhere completely new. All that matters is that we're together. I love the brownstone, she assured him. It's perfect, not too grandiose, but with enough space for both of us to have what we need. She thought of the large bay windows, perfect for a sewing room, overlooking the garden. Declan's phone buzzed with a reminder of his meeting. I have to go, he said reluctantly, but we'll celebrate tonight, anywhere you want. Nothing fancy, Naomi insisted. Let's just enjoy this between us before we tell the world. After Declan left, Naomi sat at the kitchen island staring at her ring. The emerald reminded her of the dress she'd made for their first official foundation event. The night she had begun to see that she could belong in Declan's world without losing herself. She called Margaret first, knowing her friend would be thrilled. He proposed Margaret squealed when Naomi shared the news. "I knew it. When's the wedding? Please tell me I get to be a bridesmaid." "We haven't discussed details yet," Naomi laughed. "It just happened this morning. And of course you'll be a bridesmaid." "I'm so happy for you," Margaret said sincerely. "You deserve this, Naomi, both the fairy tale and the man." Next, Naomi called Helen at the Brooklyn Library to discuss the program expansion. Buoyed by her engagement and Declan's confidence in her abilities, she agreed to consider the national position. "We should meet next week to discuss the details," Helen suggested. "I'll set up a meeting with the Foundation's Education Committee." The day passed in a blur of excitement and planning. By the time Declan returned that evening, Naomi had already started a list of potential wedding venues and ideas for her dress. "Someone's been busy," he commented, noticing the sketches on the coffee table. "Just preliminary thoughts," she said, suddenly self-conscious. "We don't have to decide anything right away." "Actually, I've been thinking about it too," Declan admitted. "How would you feel about a full wedding? Maybe October when the leaves are changing." "October would be perfect," Naomi agreed. "Small though, right? Just close friends and family." Declan hesitated. "Define small. There are some business associates and foundation board members I should probably invite." "How many are we talking?" "About?" Naomi asked cautiously. "Maybe 100. 100 is not small, Declan," Naomi exclaimed. "I was thinking more like 30 or 40 people." "We could compromise," he suggested. "A small ceremony with just our closest people, then. A larger reception for the extended circle." Naomi considered this. That could work, as long as the important part, the actual wedding, stays intimate. They spent the evening discussing possibilities, from locations to food to music. Declan was surprisingly invested in the details, with definite opinions about everything from flowers to cake flavors. "I never took you for a wedding enthusiast," Naomi teased. "I never thought I'd get married," he admitted. "After watching my parents' cold relationship, marriage didn't seem appealing. But with you it feels right, like the natural next step in our story." Over the next few weeks, their engagement became public knowledge. Naomi's ring drew admiring glances at work, and Declan's business associates offered congratulations. The society pages ran articles about New York's most eligible bachelor finally settling down, complete with photos of them together at various events. Victoria's reaction when it came was predictably bitter. At a foundation board meeting that Naomi attended to present the expanded sewing program, Victoria approached her during a break. "Congratulations on the engagement," she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "I hope you've considered a prenuptial agreement. Declan's family fortune needs protection after all." "Thank you for your concern," Naomi replied calmly. "Declan and I have discussed all the necessary legal arrangements." This wasn't exactly true. They hadn't talked about a prenup yet, but Naomi wouldn't give Victoria the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. "Good to hear," Victoria said, "though I wonder if you've considered the other implications of marrying into the Marlowe name, the expectations, the scrutiny, the social obligations. It's a lot for someone unaccustomed to that lifestyle." "I appreciate your insights," Naomi said, maintaining her composure. "But Declan and I are quite capable of figuring out our own path." Victoria leaned closer. "Just remember, darling, men like Declan always return to what they know. You're a novelty, a charming diversion. But eventually he'll want someone who truly understands his world." Before Naomi could respond, Declan appeared at her side. "Victoria," he acknowledged coldly, "I see you've congratulated Naomi on our engagement." "Of course," Victoria replied, smoothly. "I was just offering some friendly advice about married life in your circle." "How thoughtful," Declan said, his tone making it clear he knew better. "But we won't be needing advice, thank you. Naomi and I are writing our own rules." As Victoria walked away, Naomi released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Don't let her get to you," Declan said, squeezing her hand. "She mentioned a prenup," Naomi admitted quietly. "We haven't discussed that." Declan sighed. "I was planning to bring it up. My lawyers have been insistent about it, given the family holdings and business interests. It's not about trust, Naomi. It's just standard procedure when there's significant wealth involved." "I understand," she said, though part of her felt hurt. "And I don't want your money, Declan." You know that. I know, he assured her. Which is exactly why I've instructed the lawyers to be extremely generous in the terms. You'll be well taken care of, no matter what happens. The conversation left Naomi uneasy. It was a stark reminder of the practical differences in their backgrounds, the kind of considerations that never would have entered her mind. That evening, as they looked at potential wedding venues online, Naomi couldn't shake Victoria's words. The woman had touched on Naomi's deepest insecurity, that despite Declan's love and assurances, she would never truly belong in his world. What about this place in the Hamptons? Declan suggested, showing her photos of an elegant beachfront estate. It's beautiful, Naomi acknowledged. But is it us? I mean, I've never even been to the Hamptons. Declan looked surprised. Really? We should go this summer. I have a house there that's been in the family for generations. Another property. You forgot to mention? Naomi teased, but there was an edge to her voice. Declan noticed her tone. What's wrong? And don't say nothing, I know you better than that. Naomi sighed. Victoria got under my skin today. She said some things about me being a novelty and how you'd eventually want someone who truly understands your world. She's just jealous, Declan dismissed. But what if she's right, Naomi pressed. I'm just learning about prenups and summer houses in the Hamptons and all these things that are normal for you. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever truly fit into your life. Declan closed the laptop and turned to face her fully. Naomi, listen to me. I don't want someone who fits into my old life. I want someone who helps me build a new one. A better one. That's what you've done. He took her hands. Before you, my world was full of people like Victoria, superficial relationships based on wealth and status. You showed me there's so much more. You brought books and creativity and genuine connection back into my life. Tears filled Naomi's eyes. I'm just scared sometimes. This all feels like a dream, and I'm afraid one day I'll wake up and it will be over. Then we'll just have to make sure it's not a dream, Declan said firmly. Starting with making some very real wedding plans that feel right to both of us. They decided on a small ceremony at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, followed by a reception at a historic hotel owned by the Marlowe Group. Naomi would design her own dress, of course, and Margaret would be her maid of honor. Declan's college roommate, Jack, would serve as best man. As spring turned to summer, Naomi divided her time between wedding preparations, the expanding sewing program, and setting up their new home in the Park Slope brownstone. Declan had insisted she take the lead on decorating, wanting the house to reflect her taste, rather than hiring an interior designer as he had with his previous properties. One weekend in July, Declan surprised her with a trip to the Hamptons house he had mentioned. Naomi was nervous about seeing yet another aspect of his privileged upbringing, but the oceanfront property turned out to be less intimidating than she had feared. Though large and clearly valuable, the house had a lived-in feel, with weathered shingles and comfortable, slightly outdated furniture. Family photos lined the walls, including several of young Declan and Eliza building sandcastles on the beach. This place hasn't been remodeled since my grandmother was alive, Declan explained, as he showed her around. I've never had the heart to change it. Too many memories. Naomi ran her hand along a bookshelf filled with well-worn classics. It feels like a real home. It is, Declan said, more than any of my other properties. Eliza and I spent every summer here as kids. It was the only time our parents weren't working constantly, the only place we felt like a normal family. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the waves, Declan seemed lost in thought. What are you thinking about? Naomi asked, curled beside him on the swing. Our future, he replied. Children playing on that beach, building sandcastles. Like Eliza and I used to do. Family dinners in that big kitchen. Christmas mornings by the fireplace. You want children? Naomi asked softly. They had never explicitly discussed it. With you? Absolutely. He looked at her uncertainly. Don't you? Yes, she said without hesitation. I've always wanted a family of my own, something stable and loving, unlike my childhood. I just wasn't sure if you did. I want everything with you, Naomi, he said, pulling her closer. The whole fairy tale, marriage, children, growing old together on this porch. As summer faded into autumn, wedding preparations intensified. Naomi finished her dress, a vintage-inspired creation with delicate lace and subtle beading. She worked on it in the evenings at the brownstone, keeping it hidden from Declan in her sewing room. The teen program continued to thrive, with the national expansion plan taking shape. Naomi had agreed to take on the director position with a small staff to help manage the logistics. The foundation board had approved the budget unanimously. Even Victoria's father had finally relented after seeing the program's success in Brooklyn. 2 weeks before the wedding, Naomi was working late at the library when her phone buzzed with a text from Declan. "Need to cancel dinner tonight. Emergency board meeting, sorry, love you." Disappointed but understanding, Naomi decided to head home to the brownstone and work on some last-minute wedding details. As she was gathering her things, another text arrived, this one from an unknown number. When she opened it, her blood ran cold. It was a photo of Declan and Victoria, sitting close together at what appeared to be a restaurant, not a boardroom. Victoria's hand was on Declan's arm, and they were deep in conversation. A second text followed. "Thought you should know where your fiancé really is tonight. Some men never change." Naomi stared at the photo, her mind racing. The setting didn't look like a business meeting. Victoria was dressed elegantly, leaning toward Declan with unmistakable intimacy. She tried to remain rational. There could be an explanation. Perhaps the board meeting had been cancelled and Victoria had cornered Declan somewhere. Perhaps the photo was old, taken before their relationship. But doubt crept in, Victoria's words echoing in her mind. Men like Declan always return to what they know. Naomi tried calling Declan, but the call went straight to voicemail. Upset and confused, she took a taxi to the brownstone, her mind creating increasingly painful scenarios with each passing minute. At home, she paced the living room, checking her phone constantly. Should she confront him? Wait for an explanation? The uncertainty was unbearable. Finally, close to midnight, the front door opened. Declan looked exhausted as he entered, loosening his tie. "Naomi, you're still up," he said, surprised. "I thought you'd be asleep by now." "Where were you tonight?" she asked directly, her voice tight with emotion. Declan frowned. "I told you, emergency board meeting. One of our major projects hit a regulatory snag, and we needed to revise the entire proposal." "Was Victoria there?" Naomi asked, watching his face carefully. "Victoria?" He looked confused. "Yes, her father sent her as his proxy since he's in London. Why?" Wordlessly, Naomi showed him the photo on her phone. Declan's expression changed from confusion to understanding to anger. "This is not what it looks like," he said firmly. "The meeting ran late and several of us went to get dinner afterward. We were discussing the regulatory issues, that's all. You didn't think to update me? To let me know your plans had changed? I was going to call, but my phone died," Declan explained, pulling out his phone to show her. "I didn't have my charger with me. Who sent you this anyway?" "I don't know," Naomi admitted. "Unknown number." Declan's jaw tightened. "Victoria, it has to be, or someone working for her. She must have asked someone to take the photo and send it to you, knowing how it would look." The explanation made sense, but Naomi's insecurities had been triggered. Why would she go to such lengths? "Because she's still bitter," Declan said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "She can't accept that I've moved on, that I've found something real with you." He sat beside Naomi on the couch, taking her hands. "I'm sorry I didn't call. I should have borrowed someone's phone to let you know what was happening. But please believe me, nothing is going on between Victoria and me. Nothing ever will." Naomi wanted to believe him. His explanation was perfectly reasonable, and he had never given her reason to doubt him before. But the photo had awakened all her deepest fears. 2 weeks before our wedding," she said quietly. "Perfect timing to plant doubts." "That's exactly what she wants," Declan insisted, "to create problems between us. Don't let her win, Naomi." Despite his reassurances, the incident cast a shadow over the following days. Naomi tried to focus on the wedding preparations, but the image of Declan and Victoria together kept resurfacing in her mind. 3 days before the wedding, Naomi was at the botanical garden for the final walkthrough when her phone rang. It was Helen from the Library Foundation. "Naomi, I'm so sorry to bother you with this right before your wedding," Helen began, but there's been a development with the national program funding." "What kind of development?" Naomi asked, stepping away. "From the garden staff. The committee just informed me that the funding has been reduced significantly. We can still launch in Brooklyn and possibly 1 or 2 other cities, but the full national rollout will have to be delayed." "But the board approved the full budget," Naomi protested. "What changed?" "Apparently, there were concerns raised about the program's scalability and oversight," Helen explained apologetically. "The vote was close, but in the end they decided to take a more conservative approach." After the call, Naomi sat on a bench in the garden, stunned. The national program had been her dream, a chance to make a real difference on a larger scale. Now that dream was in jeopardy. When she told Declan about it that evening, his reaction surprised her. "This is Victoria's doing," he said, pacing the living room angrily. "Her father chairs the budget committee. She must have convinced him to vote against the full funding." "Can she really do that?" Naomi asked. "The Winters family has significant influence," Declan admitted. "They've been major donors to the foundation since its inception. But why would she target the program? It's not about me personally, it's about helping underprivileged teens." "Because it's your program," Declan said grimly. "And because she knows how much it means to you. This is her trying to hurt you, to demonstrate her power." He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. I won't let her get away with this." The next day, Declan returned from the foundation offices looking both triumphant and troubled. "Good news and bad news," he told Naomi. "The good news is that I convinced the board to restore the full funding. They've overturned the budget committee's decision." "And the bad news?" Naomi asked, sensing there was more. Declan sighed heavily. "Victoria made a scene. She accused me of abusing my position as CEO, of pushing through your program because of our personal relationship rather than its merits. She threatened to go public with allegations of financial impropriety." "That's ridiculous," Naomi exclaimed. "The program's success speaks for itself." "Of course it does," Declan agreed. "And the board knows that. But Victoria's accusations, even if baseless, could cause problems for the foundation's reputation if she goes to the press." Naomi felt sick. "So what happens now?" "Now we get married," Declan said firmly. "And after our honeymoon, we deal with Victoria once and for all. I'm done letting her interfere in our lives." The morning of the wedding dawned clear and cool, with autumn leaves drifting through the botanical garden. In a small room provided for the bridal party, Naomi sat as Margaret helped her with the final touches to her hair and makeup. "You look absolutely beautiful," Margaret said, stepping back to admire her friend. "That dress is a masterpiece." Naomi smiled, running her hands over the delicate fabric. The vintage-inspired gown had turned out even better than she had hoped, with subtle beading that caught the light with every movement. There was a knock at the door and Helen from the library peeked in. "There's someone here to see you, Naomi. She says it's important." To Naomi's shock, Victoria Winters stepped into the room, looking immaculate in an expensive suit. "Margaret, Helen, could you give us a minute?" Naomi asked, not wanting an audience, for whatever confrontation was about to occur. When they were alone, Victoria spoke first. "You look lovely, very handmade." "What do you want, Victoria?" Naomi asked directly. "If you're here to cause trouble on my wedding day, I'm here to give you a gift," Victoria interrupted, holding out an envelope. "Something every bride deserves on her wedding day, the truth." Naomi didn't take the envelope. "I'm not interested in your version of the truth." "This isn't my version," Victoria insisted. "These are documents from the Foundation's financial records. Declan has been channeling funds through shell companies, manipulating budgets to benefit his personal investments." "I don't believe you," Naomi said firmly. "Look at the evidence," Victoria urged, placing the envelope on a nearby table. "Ask yourself why he pushed so hard for your program to receive full funding when other worthy initiatives were cut. It's not just because he loves you. It's because he's using the foundation for his own gain." "Get out," Naomi said, her voice shaking with anger. "I won't let you ruin this day." Victoria shrugged elegantly. "The truth will come out eventually, with or without your cooperation. I just thought you deserved to know what kind of man you're marrying." After Victoria left, Naomi stared at the envelope, torn between curiosity and loyalty. Part of her wanted to open it, to prove Victoria wrong once and for all. but another part feared what she might find. In the end, she tucked the envelope into her bag, unwilling to let Victoria's accusations cloud her wedding day. She would discuss it with Declan afterward, give him a chance to explain. The ceremony was intimate and beautiful, just as they had planned. Naomi walked down the petal-strewn path alone, having no family to give her away. But as she approached, Declan standing tall and handsome in his tuxedo, she felt anything but alone. His face, when he saw her in her dress, made all the doubts and difficulties of the past few weeks fade away. There was such love and admiration in his eyes that Naomi knew in that moment that they would overcome whatever challenges lay ahead. Their vows were simple and heartfelt. Declan spoke of finding unexpected love when he least expected it, of how Naomi had taught him the value of genuine connection. Naomi promised to stand by him through all of life's tears, to mend what was broken and strengthen what was whole. At the reception, Declan surprised her with a special announcement. He unveiled a large check made out to the Brooklyn Public Library Foundation, establishing the Eleanor Grace Marlowe Fund for Literary Arts, named after his grandmother. This fund will ensure that the sewing and literacy program my wife has created will continue for generations to come, Declan told the assembled guests. Not just in Brooklyn, but in communities across the country. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, and Naomi felt tears of happiness well in her eyes. She had almost forgotten about Victoria's envelope until she looked across the room and saw the woman watching from the back, her expression unreadable. Later, as they danced together for the first time as husband and wife, Declan held her close. "Are you happy, Mrs. Marlowe?" he whispered in her ear. "Completely," she replied, and meant it. Whatever tomorrow might bring with Victoria's accusations, today was perfect, a culmination of their unlikely journey from a torn dress to a mended heart. As the evening wound down, they prepared to leave for their honeymoon in Italy. Naomi had changed into a simpler dress for traveling, and Declan was saying his goodbyes to the last remaining guests. Margaret hugged Naomi tightly. "I'm so happy for you," she said. "You deserve every bit of this fairy tale." "It hasn't all been a fairy tale," Naomi replied honestly. "We've had our challenges." "That's what makes it real," Margaret said wisely. "The tears along the way make the happy ending that much sweeter." As they drove away from the reception, rice and flower petals showering the car, Declan took Naomi's hand. "No regrets?" he asked. "None," she assured him. Tomorrow she would show him Victoria's envelope and they would face whatever it contained together. But tonight was for celebrating the journey that had brought them here. From a torn dress at a charity gala to a love strong enough to withstand any challenge. "You know," Declan said thoughtfully, "I never did thank that seam for ripping." Naomi laughed. "No, you didn't. If it hadn't given way at that exact moment, I might never have met the love of my life. I guess sometimes things have to tear before they can be mended," Naomi replied, leaning her head on his shoulder. As the car carried them toward their future together, Naomi thought about the words Declan had whispered to her that first night. "Let them see your grace, not the tear." In the end, it had been the tear that brought them together, but it was grace, his kindness, her resilience, their shared values, that had created something beautiful and lasting from that unexpected beginning. And as for Victoria's envelope, it remained unopened in Naomi's bag, a challenge for another day, because today Naomi knew with absolute certainty that whatever foundation they built their life upon, it would be strong enough to weather any storm. The tear that had started it all had been mended, stitch by stitch, creating a bond far stronger than it had been before. And that, Naomi reflected as she gazed at her new husband, was the true art of restoration, not erasing the damage, but transforming it into something even more beautiful than before. The end.